Yes! Oh, it is. It is. Another episode, a big Monday episode of Donno Daily here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks so much to everyone tuning in to the usual show at a not so usual time. Had to move around the start time today, so I appreciate you guys and, of course, for Manny Chang working in the background for being flexible today. Usually we go live at 12 noon. That is the normal time. We are going back to that time. But today I had a couple of meetings, so I thought, hey, instead of skipping a show, because why would I not want to do a show? Let's do a show, but let's do it just a little bit later in the day. So I'm happy to be here. And you know what? An extra couple of hours just gave me more time to digest some Miami Dolphins and Miami Hurricanes and Miami Heat thoughts. And we're going to have a couple of great guests joining us today. Before we get to all of that, want to remind you we are brought to you by the great folks at the official sports book of Donno Daily. That is BetUS.com. Bet with the 3-decade leader, BetUS. You can join now for a 125% bonus or a 200% bonus if you use crypto just by using our promo code 5RSN125. You type in that promo code when you make your deposit, you're going to be swimming in free play money. 125% of your deposit will be given to you in free play. It is so good. You can bet sports. They've got a casino right in there, horses, pop culture, and more at betus.com. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS. We are also served by the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. Guys, the freshest seafood you will find. Oysters, Maine lobster. I love the sushi at the Quarterdeck. It's so good. The buffalo shrimp is ridiculous. They offer, by the way, for the drinkers out there, 2-for-1 happy hour all day, every day. It never ends. Make the Quarterdeck your spot to watch every UFC pay-per-view fight for zero cover charge. You pay nothing at the door at Quarterdeck to watch every UFC pay-per-view. Check out their menu and find the location nearest to you by visiting them online at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. So we come off finally having some quasi-actual football to talk about with the Miami Dolphins having played preseason game number 1 in Chicago. Overall, the starters looked very good. The backups, not as much. The starters on defense kept Chicago in check. The starters on offense were doing some good things. In the first preseason game, this shouldn't surprise anyone, given the national and sometimes international narratives around the Miami Dolphins starting quarterback. Guess what, people? If you thought anything would be settled after Tua Tagovailoa plays the first preseason game of his career, because remember, there was no preseason last year because of the pandemic. No, Tua is still dividing people after his first preseason game of 2021. He played just over a quarter in the game. Me personally, I thought it was a fine outing for Tua. I thought he did fine. 8 for 11 for 99 yards. Those are the stats. Was throwing into tight windows. He did complete a nice throw, a 50-yarder down the field to Mike Gesicki. He threw him open very well with that one. Tua's 3 incomplete passes were 2 drops and a throwaway. He threw a completion down the middle that I really liked to Durham Smythe with good velocity in a tight window. He found Mac Hollins in a tight window for a first down on 3rd and 8. Tua, another thing that I hope people are talking about, I hope people saw in a couple of instances in this game, had some good footwork and good instincts under pressure. I thought the way he was able to maneuver the pocket was very nice. And I didn't even mention who was inactive in this game because, folks, you're seeing people out there who probably just watched the interception. We'll get to that. People who probably just watched the interception probably looked at the fact that Tua didn't throw a touchdown and the Dolphins didn't score a touchdown when Tua was on the field, and they jumped to their own conclusions to keep pushing their blind narrative. That's what it's become. It's become an agenda-driven narrative against Tua Tagovailoa and the usual suspects. We're going to be pointing some of them out on this program, okay? But let's remember this as well, because the folks who are talking about what Tua did and didn't do when he was on the field for just over a quarter against the Chicago Bears, can we mention who from his receiving core were not even active in that game? How can anyone make so many negative determinations about Tua in a preseason game when Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, and Albert Wilson were all inactive. That's 3 of his 4 top receivers. Allen Hurns was inactive as well. So you're telling me no Wilson, no Fuller, no Devontae Parker, no Allen Hurns, and you're expecting Tua to go out there guns blazing, throwing 3-4 touchdown passes? I saw a lot of good. And by the way, good afternoon to everyone logging in on the chat right now. G.A. Kane fan, hello. Mike Lowry, hello to you as well, sir. Make sure when you guys are in watching us live, if you're watching live, take advantage of the live chat feature. You see Manny Chang is always flashing up the good comments and the good questions. I throw people love in the chat whenever I can as well. And while you're in here, my friends, whether you're watching live or you're watching later, smash the like button, smash that thumbs up button, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5 Reasons Sports. So I've talked about some of the good with Tagovailoa. It wasn't all good. I can't ignore the bad throw that he made in that game, okay? The interception, which left the bad taste in our mouth because that was the final snap that he took before getting replaced by Jacoby Brissett, who I like, by the way. The dude, and especially you notice his size comparison compared to Tua. Jacoby Brissett is gigantic. Like, I'm not saying he should take the starting job or anything like that, but I like him a lot as a backup quarterback. But the final throw that Tua made was an interception, and the interception was bad. It was correctable. Like, that's not something I'm going to look at and say, he sucks. He's going to do that every game. Oh, my God. Tua was late on everything about that play. All of his reads were late. The delivery was late. He delivered the ball late. It was Shaheen who he was attempting to throw it to that got picked off right in front of the end zone or right in the end zone. Guys, you can never be late throwing down the middle, and you can especially never be late throwing down the middle in the red zone. So that was something. Ill-advised throw by Tua. Everything he did was off on that play. That isn't, to me, something he does in the game, and I say, you can't fix that. There's nothing you can do about that. I think that was a correctable mistake, and Tua and his offensive coordinators, because there are 2 of them, need to take a look at that. And the other thing is, I'll bring this up, and God, for the life of me, I like to give credit where credit was due. It might have been Barry Jackson who brought this up, but I was reading this in one of the many post-game pieces that I read after Miami-Chicago that, it might have been our own Alfredo Arteaga who brought this up. Let me give credit to Alf, who's a weekly guest here on this program. He's awesome. That it's really hard to expect Tua's timing to be perfect on plays like that when there's been such a revolving door of receivers he's been throwing to in practice, right? Because so many guys, Devontae Parker included, Allen Hurns, they've inactives throughout various spots in camp. Jalen Waddle was limited early. It's like you've never known which receiver is going to be in there which days in practice. So some of that timing stuff, it takes a little bit longer to figure out, my friends. And if you're going to be making mistakes, if you're going to be making rudimentary mistakes like he made on that throw, I'd much rather be making those in preseason game number 1. And then hopefully you get those out of the way by preseason game number 2, okay? Let me go over something else miscellaneous that I did like in that game. I don't want to see this, happening 4 or 5 punts per every single game, but Jalen Waddle, that first punt return that he had in the game, God, you could see special teams wise, I can understand why Waddle is an option there as a return man. And I know a lot of us don't like to see it because this is the bell cow of your draft. This is your top pick, your wide receiver of the future. He's had some injury troubles. Do we really want to make him a regular return man? Guys, he looks electric fielding punts, like absolutely electric. You saw him reverse field, juke, pick up extra yardage on that return, and how fired up he got afterwards. So, whenever he gets those opportunities, maybe it's situationally, maybe if Jakeem Grant ends up staying on the team, he's going to get most of those looks, but I'm not convinced Jakeem Grant stays on the team. But whenever Jalen Waddle gets those opportunities as a return man, he is a threat to make things happen, my friends. Okay, so here's something that I didn't like in preseason game 1. And I know I'm not the only one, because if you actually watched him and you saw the analytics that came out after the game, we might have an Austin Jackson problem. Might. I want to emphasize might, because I want to be fair to myself and I want to be fair to the story that I'm telling here, because I can't on the one hand tell you I'm not going to overreact to Tua throwing a bad interception, and then on the other hand tell you I think the Dolphins starting left tackle sucks and we need a new one. Now, I've got to be fair. It's one preseason game, but he was bad, bro. Oh, and this is a good comment from Alfredo. Bears got their first down with 27 seconds left in the first half. Fields had 3 consecutive 3-and-outs, second team D, then smoked the Finns third team. And hold on, let me circle back to Austin Jackson, because Alfredo reminded me of something. You guys need to understand sometimes when I tweet, they come out in a gambling context, okay? I actually did bet the Miami Dolphins to cover a 3.5-point spread in this preseason game. I don't make a habit out of betting in preseason, but we made a few plays over the weekend. And so at the time when Justin Fields, who, yes, was not doing crap against the first team defense, but then started really shredding the third team, I saw my opportunity for the Dolphins to cover that spread and win me some money. I saw it slipping away, okay? So then I started writing some very complimentary tweets about Justin Fields, who I referred to as looking like a preseason Pro Bowler. And then what happens? People see these tweets. They don't understand I'm a degenerate. I've got money on the other team. And they start saying, what is Donno doing complimenting Justin Fields? What has he done? Who is he putting up numbers against? He's putting up numbers against backups and third teamers. Bros, I get it. I was not in any way trying to anoint Justin Fields as the second coming of anything. Oh, no. Now I'm an anti-Finn fan? Oh, Manny loves roasting me. Manny loves roasting me. No, I just thought with the way that Justin Fields was moving the football, putting up points against the third teamers, he blew my Dolphins cover out of the water. And I was impressed by the work he was doing, but I understand the context, okay? I understand he wasn't going against the top defenders. He was feasting against the guys who you'll probably rarely, if ever, see on the field in Miami Dolphins uniforms. But as far as the left tackle position going, Austin Jackson, pass blocking grade. If you're a subscriber to the Pro Football Focus Gospel, he received a miserable grade of 31.8 in Pass Pro. For reference, I scored a 33.5 from my couch. That's how bad Austin Jackson was. Now, I've defended this guy, and I've made excuses for him after his rookie season. I still think he could be really good, okay, because he was hurt for a good chunk last year. He was also recovering from donating bone marrow to his sister, which is an awesome thing to do. And I'm told the recovery from that is no picnic. So he needed some time to really get back to being himself. I hope he does better against Atlanta and moving forward into the regular season, of course, because even though he may not be the guy protecting Tua's blind side, we still need better out of our left tackle. Oh, man. And I see even Royal A. Shepherd, our good friend, is in the chat. Donno, a Finns hater. You hate to see it. Oh, you know, if I were to really become a Finns hater, I don't think I really have any option for a second team, right? I see some people talk about that sometimes. Like, oh, if my team lets me down so much, I'm going to give up on them. I'm going to root for somebody else. I hate every NFL team that's not the Miami Dolphins. I would still watch the NFL because I'd be playing fantasy. I'd be betting on games. Shout out to our friends at betus.com because they provide odds on literally everything, and they are great. You know, we'll give them a little bit more love later in the episode so you guys can find out how to sign up with our code and make the most of your sports betting experience throughout the season. Now, I would still watch the NFL. If I were to give up on the Dolphins, I would still watch, but I don't think I would ever adopt another team. But no, I'm not a Finns hater. All right, let's talk all things Finns with a man who's such a good friend of the show and one of the awesome content creators here from the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and he covers the Dolphins really, really well. Louis D. Sung is with us now. The man, the myth, the legend. Louis, good afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Donno. How about you today?
I'm doing really well, man, and I'm going to be putting more of these Tua haters on blast in a minute. But how did you feel about? We didn't see him a whole lot, but you know, Colin Cowherd was insulted that he didn't throw any touchdown passes, and he's calling the kid a bust again. So what did you see out of Tua? What was your evaluation?
I saw that he did pretty much everything you could ask of a starting quarterback in his very first preseason game, except for that one little itty-bitty mistake that Colin Cowherd absolutely jumped on like it was a fumble. He threw the ball effectively. He was able to navigate the pocket, which it was relatively decent. I want to give the offensive line a little credit in pass protection. The run blocking was god-awful, but their pass protection was decent. But as far as what Tua did just as him, he did everything that I would have expected out of a second-year quarterback. He looked much more comfortable. He was able to find his targets. He was able to do everything that I wanted to see from him. And if anybody's picking on him because he threw that one interception in the end zone, I mean, I get it. It was disappointing. I didn't like it. But am I gonna negate everything that he did well up to that point? No, because that would not be fair. But you know how it goes with stat watchers. They see that 57 QB rating. Oh, he threw an interception instead of throwing a touchdown. First of all, it's preseason. I don't particularly care. It's not that big a deal. Whatever.
Yeah, I would have been more concerned if he wasn't moving the ball. I mean, because he made a couple of big time throws on third down, moved the chains a handful of times. Maybe I set the bar way too low for preseason game number one, but honestly, those are the primary things I look for in the first preseason game. Like I would have been a lot more concerned if he was on the field for three and outs and looking like a deer in the headlights. Because the other thing, Lewis, I thought Tua showed some poise in the pocket when he did have to move around and evade pressure. I thought he looked very comfortable there.
He looked very comfortable. And again, this is what I was saying, is that he looks like a quarterback that knows what he's doing now. It looks like a quarterback that has had time to get associated with a new offense, an offense built specifically for him and his teammates, by the way. That makes a huge amount of difference because we cannot forget that the offense that was there last year was the Chan Gailey offense built for Ryan Fitzpatrick. It wasn't built for Tua. And we hear all this stuff about how Fitzpatrick was shocked that they were going to Tua. I guess if the offense was built for him, I'd be kind of shocked too that they were going to go to someone else. It's like, hey, this is my offense. Why are you going to another guy? But I digress. It's neither here nor there at this point. As far as evaluating Tua specifically, he did everything that I could have asked for except for reading Shaheen quicker. If he had done that, it would have been a touchdown. It would have been easy, but he reacted too late. But that comes with time.
Now, a guy who's really taken a beating in the post-game analysis is Austin Jackson. How bad did you think he was?
I'm actually getting ready to write an article about it. I can't say that he did very much well, man. I really can't. Like, you look at every single snap that he took almost, it was like he was falling backwards, missing his guy. And the one thing that he really did well last season was, and this is what he was known for, as Alfredo Atiaga has alluded to several times, is speed rushing. Like, you would think that that's the one thing he would get right, but even that he couldn't seem to do well. So I don't know if it's a physical thing, if maybe he's still injured or something along those lines, or if it's all up in his head. Like, he kind of has the offensive tackle yips, so to speak, a la Matt Skura. I don't know what his issue is, but he needs to fix it quick. Otherwise, we might have some problems this upcoming season.
Wow. We saw Jalen Waddle get a little work as a return man, and I thought that punt return that he had was pretty electric. How much of that do you think we're going to see during the season? Because that's always something. Like, some Dolphin fans say, you know what? If he's your best return guy, use him. Other Dolphin fans say he's too precious. Like, we cannot risk his body. Where do you fall on that?
I'm in the he's too precious, don't risk his body camp. I've been on the record saying that if you're going to have Jalen Waddle be a kick returner or a punt returner, it's because Jakeem Grant did not make the roster. If Grant does make the roster, which I don't see any reason as of yet as to why he wouldn't, because I know how everybody says, oh, well, in games he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, even though he looks really great in practice. Okay, but he looks really great in practice. How do you justify cutting somebody if he's balling out in practice? He has this connection with Tua, and then you cut him because you don't like that he dropped the pass last year? I mean, if you want to talk about people dropping passes, again, I think I alluded to this last time, is people that remember Jakeem's drops, but Preston Williams gets a free pass. Because everybody remembers he's been dropping a lot of passes too, but he's big, he's tall, he's fast, he's tough, he's all these things. Okay. And he drops passes. You can't harp on Jakeem Grant dropping passes if you're not going to give Preston Williams the same criticism. So if I'm the Miami Dolphins, I'm still saying that if Grant's going to make the roster, he needs to be the returner because, again, don't overlook it. Grant had some couple returns too, and I was looking at it, it's like they're the same player. In returns, they're the same player. They're just as electric, just as you saw Grant. He almost broke free for a touchdown if you noticed. So if he had just squeezed by like one more guy, he would have been gone. So,
by the way, I like this latest comment from Mike Lowry, who brings up a name that I did want to ask you about, Mac Hollins. He is the wide receiver, writes Mike, who spent the most time in the offseason doing field work with Tua, and it's paying off. I'm so impressed with that guy. I mean, I will admit I gave him a little bit of slander just because it's Mac Hollins. Like, I remember last year, Lewis, I was doing shows on Onside Radio, and Tito Bonach was producing with me at the time. And we used to refer to like Hollins and Lynn Bowden as Geek Squad employees who were like playing football part-time with the Dolphins. But Hollins looks like the real deal, man. I mean, where do you think he's going to fit in with this receiving core? Because obviously the Dolphins on paper have a lot of depth there.
And that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I will admit that I was a little low on Mac Hollins last season, only because I knew that he was a special teams ace, but I didn't see where he was going to fit with this new receiving core. But again, now you see that he and Tua have this rapport going. And I honestly, I brought this up during the post-game show. Nobody agreed with me, by the way, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'll see what your thoughts are on this.
Sure.
Is that if there was anybody who would make Devontae Parker an expendable asset, that you could maybe get something out of him, it would be the fact that Mac Hollins has done what he's done. Now, I understand the special teams aspect of it. Yeah. I understand all that stuff, and everybody called me crazy. But if you have it's a very similar skill set, a very similar body shape. What is Mac Hollins? He's like 6'4", something along those lines. Parker's 6'3". They're both go up and get it kind of guys. They're both tough. Well, I wouldn't say Parker's tough, but
he's not. I think Hollins is tougher.
But so I'm just thinking to myself, if you've developed Mac Hollins into this kind of receiver, and you still have, by the way, Preston Williams waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
he's still sitting there on the pup list. He's still there. Why, if it's at all possible, and you can't fit all of these guys into one roster, what are you going to keep, like 9 receivers? You can't keep them all.
Yeah.
So at that point, would it be possible to see if there's a wide receiver needy team and see if you could maybe get a 3rd round or maybe a 4th and a little extra for Parker, knowing that he has a very team-friendly contract wherever he goes? Mm-hmm. We can tout that and say, hey, listen, he's a good player when he's available, and he has a really good contract. You could, give us a little something, just a thought, because otherwise you have to keep everybody, and there's not enough space for everybody.
I don't think you're crazy. Maybe you're bordering on it, but the thing is, like, I do think there's automatically just going to be some bias towards Devontae Parker because of his Pro Bowl upside. But the thing is, the reason why I'm not completely arguing with you is, for as much Pro Bowl upside as Devontae Parker has, and, his best season was 2 years ago where he was absolutely balling out. Outside of that, he's not flashed consistently, right? It's usually been injury troubles, nagging things, pulling up with hamstrings in practice and having to take it easy, all that stuff. So I don't value Devontae Parker as highly as some people do, but I think the reason why so many Dolphins fans would be resistant to your proposal of even entertaining dealing him away to replace him with a guy ostensibly like Mac Hollins is just because, in theory, Devontae Parker's upside is probably way higher than Mac Hollins. However, what you're saying, though, and we know the Dolphins decision makers, what school of thought do they come from? They come from the Patriot way. They come from the New England school of thought. And I think the scenario that you described there would be very Belichickian, wouldn't it? Just to decide, I don't care, how big of a name this guy is or how highly the previous regime drafted him and how good he was 2 years ago. If we don't think he helps us as much right now and not as consistently as this other guy can, we're going to cut bait because that's what that organization does. It's not something the Dolphins historically do, but we're kind of getting run more like the Patriots than the old school Dolphins these days, Lewis.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Now, let me be clear. I'm not advocating that the Dolphins do trade Parker. I'm not calling for the Dolphins to put him on the trade block, but I am saying that if there was a player that you were going to have to cut ties with, if anybody in that room right now, the only one I would be willing to part with, and it's because of all the things that I just mentioned, it would be Devontae Parker, but
Right.
only because of everything that I laid out. There's 2 potential replacements for him already. We have guys who can do other things that Parker doesn't do, all still there. And just, again, you can't keep everybody. So right now, let's go down the list again. We keep going down lists, I've noticed. Will Fuller is here for a year, and he's not going to play week 1. So I guess you get a free slot for at least week 1.
Oh, yeah, because he's suspended for PEDs week 1. I almost forgot about that. Hey, do whatever you have to do to win, bro.
Notice he hasn't played yet.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. Anyway, Will Fuller is one. Then you have, assuming that this is the case, and I think it will be, Albert Wilson.
Yeah.
Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
And then you have to assume Jakeem Grant. You have to assume Mac Hollins will make it.
Yeah.
And now that's, again, assuming that we have some guys that are still missing.
Did you mention Waddle, or did I miss
I did not mention Waddle, no. Okay. So that's number 6.
Yeah.
And so, and again, we still have guys that are waiting in the wings. Preston Williams is number 7 on the PUP list. Is he going to make the team? If he's not, then okay, you can take away that one. But he's going to be hanging around. And then you keep going down that list. Robert Foster has been making plays. Do you keep him around because he's done some really good stuff? Do you keep Isaiah Ford? Do you keep Malcolm Perry? I guess not. So Lynn Bowden Jr., who everybody was really high on, are you going to try to keep him around? You can't keep everybody, and that's the only.
Who is it? Is it Juan Cardona, who's just such a huge fan of Lynn Bowden Jr.? Like, won't he cry if he gets cut?
My good friend Juan.
I love Juan, but he loves his Lynn Bowden.
I don't know if he'll cry, but he will be disappointed because I get it. Lynn Bowden came up big when we needed him last year because there was nobody left aside from him and just a few other fringe players. I understand what he's talking about. It's just, again, he hasn't done anything so far in training camp. He's done almost nothing. And now he showed up in that preseason game, but who did he show up against? Third string players, fourth string players, guys who are definitely not going to make any roster. At that point, it's like, we have to keep that asterisk there. It's like when you want to give credit to Justin Fields. Everybody's really high on Justin Fields right now because of what he did against Miami's third and fourth string players. They're third and fourth string players. Now, if you had done this against the starting unit, which, by the way, did not consist of Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, then I would be saying, oh, well, okay, now we don't really have an argument to make. Justin Fields did a great job. But he didn't. When Justin Fields came out the first time, he went 3 and outs in a row. They didn't get their first down until 27 seconds left in the first half. Am I supposed to be impressed by that?
No. You know, admittedly,
and there's Alfredo with the comment. There you go.
I love it. Yeah, Bears got their. Yeah, that's so true. And you know, I got in a little bit of Twitter trouble with Dolphin fans who were mad at me for complimenting Justin Fields, but it was only because I had the Dolphins plus 3.5, and he was killing my cover. So that was well, whatever nice things I said about Justin Fields was just I didn't care if he
was totally about your own wallet.
Absolutely. Like at that point, it didn't matter to me if he was going up against first stringers or 11th stringers. I was thinking with my wallet at that point. So I wrote a couple of nice tweets about the kid. And for like an hour there with some of the responses, I know how Colin Cowherd must feel when he writes nonsense about Tua with the way people were.
The problem with Colin is that he believes it. With us, it's more like we're trying to have a sense of humor and folks aren't letting us have one.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Well, Louis, I appreciate you, sir. So Miami's next preseason game will be against the Atlanta Falcons. What would you like to see in preseason game 2? Would you like to see everybody play a little bit more or, you know, the starters around the same time we saw them the other day? What do you think?
I would like to make this the dress rehearsal game if we're going to have one. Because I remember mentioned last time I was on that are we going to have a dress rehearsal game or not? I assumed that, well, we may not have one at all if this is the case. But if there was ever a dress rehearsal game to be had, it should be this upcoming one because at least then they have another couple weeks to get themselves back in gear just in case something goes wrong. Because if somebody gets hurt, then, okay, well, here's 2 weeks to kind of get yourself back on your feet. And then we can at least have that going for us. Now, what I want to see more Tua doing well. I want to see Austin Jackson bounce back because that was just god-awful. I would like to see if maybe we can see a couple more of the starters get in there. Maybe we can get Emmanuel Ogbah in there. I'm not interested in seeing Howard and Jones. Leave them alone. I don't need to see them. Yeah. I'd like to see Javon Holland get an interception. That's what I want to see. I want to see him pick off Matt Ryan. That's what I want to see.
Oh, I love it. Louis D. Sung. You can follow him on Twitter. For those watching, you can see the handle. For those listening, I'll let you know. It's just literally his name, Louis, Luisd Sung. Thank you so much, man. By the way, you mentioned you were writing a piece. If you want to promote anything where people can find your work along 5 Reasons, let the people know.
Well, you can always find me and more on 5 Reasons Sports Network, and you can find it at 5reasonsports.com. I do have another show that I'm doing. I'm going to try to do at least once a week. It's at Pulse of Fins Nation, where I basically take the comments of Dolphins Nation, so to speak, everybody on Twitter, everybody in live chats. Like, for instance, I'll see that Royal commented that I'm absolutely off my rocker for that take. I'll react to that comment, and I will do it in real time.
See, my thing is, I like a little crazy. And if I was gonna like show everybody all my ex-girlfriends, you would understand. I like a little crazy. So I didn't think your take was that off the wall, man. I've heard worse.
Well, Royal apparently thinks that that's the craziest thing. Listen, man, you don't know me. I've had a lot of crazier takes than that, for real.
Well said, Louis. I appreciate the time, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, pleasure to be on.
So, man, when he brings up some narratives, I had a few tweets I wanted to flash. First, I'm assuming there's a little sarcasm here from our. Oh, how about this, by the way? If you think Fins fans are upset, and our guy, G.A. Canes fan, he's in the Atlanta area. He says, listen to Falcons fans on Atlanta radio. It's preseason. Wait till week 3 of the regular season. Bros, there are crazy fans and crazy radio and TV hosts everywhere. I think that's just the way the NFL is covered now. I think the NFL is just one giant overreaction. I think the only fan base I've noticed, and I'm sure that there are crazy people within this fan base, don't get me wrong, but out of the fans that I know, the good friends of mine who are New England Patriots fans are actually pretty level-headed, because I think when you dominate the league for 20 years, at that point, you just kick your feet up and like you don't worry about it. Because like the Patriots fans I know, when they were struggling last year, like they weren't really panicking. They're just like, whatever, bros. We won 6 Super Bowls in the last 19 seasons. Who cares? But I think a lot of other fan bases just go crazy. But flash for me, Manny. I thought this was a great tweet by Alf Artiaga yesterday. He said, well, if you take away the completion to Gesicki, which was a 50-yarder, the 2 conversions on out routes, the in cut to Hollins, and the other completions, Tua was 0 for 1 with an interception. And honestly, I think most of the reactions that I saw were basically people literally following Alfredo's advice on that. They took away all the completions, and in their minds, Tua was 0 for 1 with an interception. He's terrible. He's a bust. You should have drafted literally anybody but Tua. That's the reaction we're seeing. Now, Alfredo, who's a very smart man, very kind man, he was being sarcastic. Someone who's not being sarcastic is the hot take merchant himself, Colin Cowherd. He writes, well, where's all that Tua Twitter love now? If you don't get the big bucks, or you don't get the big bucks, he says, for completions between the 20s. Like, bro, what does that even mean? First of all, we all know you already hate Tua. We know you have an irrational, manufactured agenda against Tua Tagovailoa. And I feel bad for our pal Joy Taylor, who has to sit next to this ass clown every single day and listen to his ridiculous agenda-charged hot takes. But, like, first of all, Colin, like, first preseason game, the guy played just over a quarter. I know you didn't watch. Like, I know you didn't watch the game because you would have actually seen him making some nice throws, moving the chain, showing some good pocket presence. So you're going to say, where's all the Tua love now? Because he threw an interception instead of a touchdown when he was in the red zone. If I'm going to make a living basing an entire NFL career for a quarterback off of just over a quarter played and basically one bad throw you're judging him on in the first preseason game of the season, then man, Colin's job is way too easy. It's way too, if he can just jump to conclusions like that based on one preseason game, way too easy to be that sort of a clown. And Colin, of course, he loves Justin Fields because, Justin Fields, he was out there lighting it up against third and fourth stringers. So he's way better than Tua. Just makes my brain hurt. The amount of stupidity. It just makes my brain hurt. Now, here's some level-headedness from Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark, who actually played the game of football professionally, unlike Colin Cowherd. Ryan Clark, who actually apparently watched the game, tweets out, Some good things from Tua on Saturday. Has a ton of trust in his tight ends, and it showed. Huge play over the top to Mike Gesicki. Some big pickups with accurate throws to Hollins, too. Not a ton outside of the numbers, but laced a dart on a deep out. Was late on the end zone pick, but overall positive. That's analysis. Like, that is actual analysis from a guy who watched every snap that Tua played. And can someone please notify Colin Cowherd that even if you're not going to watch the entire game, it's not that difficult. If you've heard of technology and you've heard of YouTube. So I watched the game on Saturday from start to finish. And then a day after the game, you know what I decided? I'd like to go and watch every Tua Tagovailoa snap over again. Now, there's two ways I could have done that. I could have actually gone into my DVR where I recorded the game and fast forwarded between plays to every snap that Tua took, but it's not even that difficult. You go onto YouTube and you can literally run a YouTube search for Tua Tagovailoa versus Bears, and the first freaking video that pops up was actually made by the NFL, was just like a 6 or 7 minute video of every drop back that Tua had in the game, and it's that simple. Colin Cowherd can't even take the time to do that, man. It's absurd. In about 5 minutes, we're going to talk Miami Heat with Ricky J. Mark. Wanted to bring up a little Canes before we get to that. So we got some notes from the scrimmage that Miami held last night. Now, this scrimmage, just so you know, I didn't watch it. Why didn't I watch it? It wasn't open to the public. It wasn't open to the media. Now, thankfully, Manny Diaz is not exactly the Soviet Union when it comes to keeping secrets. So some of the stats and some of the info did leak out, okay? And, let me get to this AP Top 25 before we get to that. So the Miami Hurricanes, and this is an actual poll that matters. You know, the coaches poll came out last week, but the coaches poll, like it's basically purposeless. It's strictly for conversation. The AP poll, those are the little numbers you see next to your team on the television graphic when they play on Saturday. So the AP, that's like an official ranking. While Miami was 16th in the coaches poll last week, they come in at number 14 in the Associated Press poll. I can imagine what the conversation is going like today, because when Miami came out as 16 on the coaches poll, there were debates raging as to just how overrated Miami is, even being in the top 20. So they actually come out 2 spots higher in the AP poll. I'm sure there's a lot of whining, complaining individuals out there. I think that's the zone for Miami. Number 16 in the coaches poll, I thought was fine. Maybe number 14 is borderline, a little bit too high. But guys, I think that the writers, because the AP poll is it's voted on by Associated Press writers who, they don't necessarily all of them watch every team play. So there might be some regional bias in there, but they come up with Miami at 14. I can understand why there's some buzz right now behind Miami, because a big question for Miami heading into this year is how early De'Aaron King is going to be coming off knee surgery. And by all accounts, King looks really good. He's been now Miami doesn't allow any contact in their quarterbacks in fall camp, so he's not taking hits or anything like that. But De'Aaron King has been a full participant. He's looked really good out there. By Manny Diaz's word, he had a really good scrimmage last night with Miami. So we're expecting King to be full go from week 1, game 1. So that answers a question. Miami got a lot of positive buzz with a good recruiting class of 2021. There's some good players on board for 2022. Now, I know that the class of 2022 does not affect the product on the field this year, but those are positive headlines for Miami. Good transfer portal, bringing in the likes of Tyreek Stevenson in the defensive backfield and Charleston Rambo, who's going to add needed depth and leadership at the wide receiver core. So I could understand why there's positive buzz on Miami heading into the season. I also do have to wonder, because, guys, sometimes I put the tinfoil hat on. I wonder if like a maybe slightly inflated preseason ranking might have anything to do with really pumping up week 1 kickoff, Miami versus Alabama. Alabama, the number 1 team in the country. And doesn't number 1 versus number 14 look better than 1 versus 16 or 1 versus 18 and 1 versus 20? So we all know preseason rankings don't mean diddly squat, right? Because you could be ranked 14 preseason, then you start, 3-2, and you're out of the rankings after a few weeks. So it doesn't really matter. But I do have to wonder if Miami's preseason ranking might have been inflated just a tad to really sell that matchup coming up with Alabama. But a couple of things from the details we have coming out of the scrimmage last night that I like. If the receiving core can depend less on the Butterfingers guys like Pope and Wiggins, that'll be a blessing, because I do not want to count on those guys who drop everything to be dependent on to moving the chains. So you've got freshman receivers balling out. True freshman Jacoby George caught 7 passes for 127 yards and a touchdown yesterday. Romello Brinson, who I love, 4 catches for 73 yards. Brashard Smith, 2 catches for 30 yards. He, by all accounts, had a good day as well. So please, next man up at wide receiver. Miami has depth there. I don't want to see the players who drop everything having to feature prominently this year. Get some players in there who can catch, who can move the chains, who can score touchdowns. Now, according to Diaz, De'Aaron King completed 12 of his 16 passes. That's 75% completions. I like that. Hope we can get that in the season. He did have a high percentage last year. 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, I don't know if he threw any interceptions or not, because I don't think they go out of their way to include interception stats when the university gives you their scrimmage stats. So I don't know. And also, just for reference, we were not given any stats for the backup quarterbacks. So I don't know how Van Dyke or Garcia did. We weren't given any information on that, but it sounds like a good day for De'Aaron King. And I watched Manny Diaz's media availability yesterday. He was very complimentary about the King. So I think he's ready to have a big year. And I think he's got a little pressure to have a big year, because De'Aaron King, he is sponsored by every South Florida business. Like, this guy has name, image, and likeness deals from everybody. He's got restaurants. He's got MMA gyms. He's got a professional sports team in town endorsing him. So I think there's some pressure for him. And he seems like the type of player who responds positively, not negatively, to pressure to go out there and have a big season. All right, my friends, I want to have a Miami Heat conversation with a guy who I'm thrilled to bring him on for his Donno Daily debut. And I'm not going to be a stranger. I'm going to be tracking this guy. It's going to be borderline stalkerish how much we track him down to bring him on the show. Ricky J. Mark here from the 5 Reasons Sports Network joins us. Ricky, so happy to see your face, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, my man?
I'm doing really well. It's great to see you. It's great to hear you. Ricky, I've been waxing poetic and sometimes ranting like a crazy person about the Dolphins and the Canes to start the show, but I want to get to some Miami Heat. And before we dive into some summer league stuff, a player that I find myself not talking about a whole lot, and that's probably to his benefit, because I don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about this player, because there have been so many positive stories coming out. What's your expectation for Tyler Hero this coming season? Because I thought he definitely took a step back from the rookie year to the second year. What are you expecting from Hero in year 3?
So, for starters, I'm not expecting a hero. I'm expecting a solid player that plays hard on both sides of the ball, that is aware of his limitations both physically and talent-wise. I don't expect Gordon Hayward 2.0 to come out and average 27-7 at the shooting guard position. I just expect a solid young prospect who might not even be old enough to drink yet. I think he's just barely old enough to drink. Who's going to just play hard, play well, and I think, and this is just a random prediction, I guess, I think fatherhood is going to really, at least I would hope, mellow him out a little bit and force him to focus on that which really matters in terms of his basketball career and life outside of basketball. I think he's going to be okay. I'm not expecting anything huge from him. Whatever we can get out of Tyler Hero this coming season, great, but I don't expect for him to have a sophomore or a junior slump like he did last season.
I like that. I like to hear that. Let's talk about some of the big performers in Summer League. A guy that, again, I don't think I've talked enough about is Marcus Garrett, who we're expecting on a two-way deal, but the two-way guys can play up to 50 games, so we might see him relatively speaking, a lot, especially early in the year. What kind of a role do you think he can play, and how good can Garrett be?
Well, I think it should be said that this team, before Jimmy showed up, was a team built essentially by G Leaguers and journeymen. Marcus Garrett has demonstrated his abilities on defense to be almost practically NBA caliber. The guy, you do not want to be lazy off the dribble with this guy. You do not want to not bring your lunch when you play against this guy. It wouldn't shock me if they eventually gave him a bona fide straight up contract as opposed to a two-way deal. Because if there's one thing this Heat team, this Heat franchise has prided itself on, it's been defense. And Marcus Garrett brings that. He not only plays defense, but he plays hard. And that is something that if you're Eric Spoelstra, you're going to want to play a lot. Take Gabe Vincent, for example. Much has been said about Gabe's pre-Olympic limitations, but there's one thing you can't take away from him. It's his ability to play hard, and we saw that on multiple occasions this season. If you play hard, you're going to get minutes on this team. That's just how we've always seen it.
Now, I want to, Manny, flash up that comment from Ninja Viking 407, because I don't want to ignore the elephant in the room of Heat Twitter over the last week or so. Can someone explain how UD gets a roster spot? He's a king, but wouldn't he serve us better on the staff? Now, let me throw a couple shout outs there, because we get that question from Ninja. I have these conversations a lot with one of our viewers and listeners, Marla, who it's her birthday, by the way. So everyone send a happy birthday to Marla.
Happy birthday.
Very, very happy birthday. And she also, like Ninja Viking, is not so happy about UD having a roster spot. Now, Ricky, I pray at the church of Udonis Haslem. I love the guy. If he wants to hold down a roster spot until he's literally Pat Riley's age, I would not complain about that. You know, whether you consider it right now to be the 14th roster spot or the 15th roster spot, I am more than happy to give that place to UD. But do you have any reservations about that?
Naturally, I do have reservations about a player who hasn't been legitimately productive since midway through the second term of Barack Obama, if we're being absolutely honest. I mean, he hasn't had a legitimate double-double since, I think, LeBron was midway through his time here in Miami. And I understand that Heat fans have a lot of nostalgia. You know, he's a relic of the Dwayne Wade era that many Heat fans want to hold on to. And I understand that emotional attachment. I do, believe me, I get it. I understand that fully. However, there is a concern where if potentially there is another diamond in the rough type player out there that could have an opportunity, you know, sometimes careers are based on just somebody getting an opportunity. You know, Chauncey Billups wouldn't have the arguably Hall of Fame career he has now if somebody gave him a chance. You know, this was a guy who was well regarded coming out of college, but was a journeyman for a while. Udonis Haslem, I understand his role. He's not productive anymore. I mean, we saw how Heat Twitter loved that 2 minutes that he gave against Philly last season where he got himself ejected and punked Dwight Howard, but that's not why they won that game. I mean, look, I get the emotional attachment that a lot of Heat fans have, but I think, at least for me personally, it's my job to think rationally about a lot of these issues. And I think Udonis Haslem, if there's nobody better that you can get right now for that 15th spot, which I understand is a spot that generally doesn't contribute anyways.
Do you think there's anybody better? And I don't want to hold your feet to the fire here, but is there,
of course, bring it.
Is there somebody you think, you know what, this might be someone right now who's out there who could be worthy of UD's spot?
So right now, I'm not exactly sure. I think we're going to have to wait and see what's going to happen with the buyout market, because we just witnessed a pretty interesting trade between, I believe it was the Grizzlies and the Clippers, in which Patrick Beverley and a few other Rajon Rondo and a few other players. I see you, King. I see you. Don't worry. Where a bunch of those guys went over to Memphis in exchange for Eric Bledsoe. Now, I'm not the insider. Remember, the insiders on 5 Reasons Sports, that's Greg, that's Adam Barai, and that's Ethan. But if Pat Bev ends up a free agent, you know, that could be a spot worth considering. But other than that, if they want to keep throwing money at Udonis Haslem, by all means, go for it. I will say this, though, and this is one last thing when it comes to Udonis Haslem.
Sure.
Don't underestimate the presence of a player on a locker room, because in the 2013-2014 regular season, the Indiana Pacers were hell-bent on beating the Heat. That season, they were the best team in the league for a while. And then Danny Granger, who had been coming back from a knee injury, He came back, and then they traded him. They got rid of him, even though he wasn't contributing, and that destroyed the locker room because he was the only link to the Reggie Miller era, ironically enough. So it's something to consider, but at some point we're gonna have to say enough is enough. Udonis Haslem is 40, turning 41, but his age isn't even the age that I'm concerned about with regards to this roster. It's the starting lineup potentially.
Good point. So, and based on, and you may have given a little implication of your feeling there, because a lot of the additions Riley has made are players in their 30s here. But how much better have the Heat gotten? And do you think they are now contenders in the East? Like, how much better have they gotten from last year?
Okay, so what I'll say about that is, in my opinion, I think the Heat made the offseason moves that they should have made last season. Is that enough? I'm not sure, because you're still talking about Brooklyn. You still got, who knows what Philly's going to be this season if Ben Simmons isn't going to come back. You've still got Boston, who honestly, until they show me that when healthy, they're not as good as they should be, there's still someone to be concerned about. You've still got Milwaukee, the defending champions, and that's already, I think, about 3 or 4 teams. I don't know if Miami is already in that position, but as I've said before, and I know Michael from our network agrees with me on this, if Victor Oladipo comes back and is reasonably healthy, then I think the conversation changes a little bit. But right now, I think Miami's done what they were supposed to in order to stay level and to not be left in the dust. But I'm not totally convinced that it's the kind of lineup that will tear through the Eastern Conference. I've always said throughout our streams and throughout our post-game and pre-game shows that this Heat team has a puncher's chance, if healthy. But, you know, we have to face the music, and as Julian Ramos says, they still lack size. You know,
true.
PJ Tucker is 6'5", playing power forward. You know, that's not getting you past Denver fully healthy.
I appreciate your time, man, and the honesty. Even though a couple of people wanted me to shut you down with the UD comments, I had to let you say your piece.
Look, I get it, but look, I think what I will tell you what. How about this, right? I'll leave on a positive note.
Ooh, okay.
Miami reminds me very much of those hardcore 90s Knicks and Heat teams that were a hard out for most teams. Okay?
I agree.
Any team that has to play this Heat team in the playoffs come next May or whenever, it's going to be a tough out. And if they don't bring their lunch, Miami could mess around and upset one or more teams.
Fantastic. Make sure you follow him.
That's something to think about.
Absolutely. Make sure you follow this man on Twitter at Ricky J. Mark. And hey, if you have anything to promote, Ricky, any work you're doing this week on the network, let people know where they can find you.
Wow. As of right now, I'm chilling. I'm just relaxing at the moment. It's almost like an unofficial vacation right now, but I believe we've got some stuff coming up. I think tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, a certain someone is celebrating a birthday or something. I forget who it is. Oh man, is it Alana? I think it's Alana.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me that now, because
so.
I did not know this. So now I can feel like I'm actually a nice person when I wish her a happy birthday tomorrow, because I usually miss birthdays.
Yeah, no worries, man. But yeah, other than that, I'm just chilling. Just stay tuned to us. I mean, you know, you're doing a great job, Donno. I'm happy to see you doing this. I'm happy to see you have this platform, and, you know, keep up the good work. I'm happy to be on here with you.
We're having a great time, and honestly, it's people like you and all the great guests we have on that really make it go, man. To be able to lean on so many expert opinions from the network, it makes my job very easy. Ricky, thank you so much, man. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. All right, you too, man.
Awesome stuff there by Ricky J. Mark. You know, I should have mentioned this last Friday. I gave him a pass because we had so much to talk about. But Ryan Fitzpatrick sounds like a bit of a bitch. He and Chan Gailey. Now, old man Chan, I get it. He probably hasn't changed his depends in a couple days. He's a little grumpy. You know, this Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's still talking about getting benched by Brian Flores last year. Buddy, focus on football team. Focus on WFT. Leave the past in the past. He says, quote, "I have a ton of respect for Flo, and we have a very good relationship," he told Robert Mays of The Athletic. But I thought it was a joke at first. He's talking about when he got benched. "We're putting Tua in." I was floored. He said, "That was my team," said the bearded one. I fought through the shit with those guys. I get the way that the NFL works. I get it, but to have it done the way it did, he said. And then here's old man Chan reacting in that same report. I was in total shock, he said. We didn't even have a preseason. It was a totally new offense for Tua. We were just starting to hit our stride. We won 2 in a row and scored a bunch of points and moved the ball well. It came as a shock to me. Well, yeah, it clearly came as a shock to old man Chan because he put no effort whatsoever from that point on into adapting the playbook or the game plan to Tua. Like, he basically just kicked his feet up and said, whatever, bros. Here's one page of the playbook, Tua. Let's go run one page of it. And whenever Fitzpatrick comes back in, I'll open the playbook back up. I'm not going to bother teaching you or helping you adapt to anything. Like, I don't know, man. I don't have much respect for Gailey at this point. I didn't like the hire when they made the hire over a year ago. I'm happy the Dolphins have moved on. And I like Fitz. I like Fitz a lot. But are you really surprised, Fitzpatrick? Because you seem to be the only person who didn't know that at some point Tua was going to get a shot last year. Everybody knew it was going to happen. Maybe we didn't know exactly when it was going to happen. It happened in October. Maybe some people thought it would happen in November, but you knew at some point they were going to see what they had in their future investment in Tua when he was healthy enough to actually go out there and play, because I don't believe he was at the very start of the season. So I don't understand how Fitz could have been that floored and that surprised by it. He sounds very whiny after the fact to be complaining about it. I would think a guy who's been in the league, since black and white televisions and has played for half the teams in the National Football League would understand the business part of it a little bit better than he does. But happy to hear you complain, Fitzy. Thanks so much. By the way, I think we'll have to start giving out a new award weekly on the show, the Snitch of the Week. I might owe an apology to Mark Cuban. Multiple times on this program, I have insinuated that Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks and one of the hosts of Shark Tank, I have insinuated that he was the person who complained to the NBA about the Heat to open up a tampering investigation with the Kyle Lowry deal. If I am to believe former New Orleans Pelican J.J. Redick, it was actually the Pelicans GM, David Griffin, the former Cavaliers guy. So on whatever the podcast is he does, what is it? The Old Man and the Three podcast, J.J. Redick indicated that David Griffin was the one who snitched to the league about the Heat and the Chicago Bulls tampering. And it actually makes sense for him to be the one to do it if you do the math, because the two things he complained about, the Bulls and the Heat, they both affected New Orleans directly. It's a little bit for show, probably, I guess, said Redick of the NBA investigation. Quote, I don't know. I think you would probably have to ask the guy who's asking for the investigation. Some teams cleared a ton of cap space to get Kyle Lowry, and it didn't happen. And then Lonzo leaving, we know where he left. You have to ask that guy complaining. So it's not that hard to read between the lines. And Redick has his own axe to grind, by the way, with David Griffin from the way he was traded from there. So he's not a big David Griffin fan, to say it, to be fair. But it kind of makes sense if you follow the clues in the breadcrumbs. So maybe it was David Griffin, not Mark Cuban, complaining about the Heat to open that investigation. Oh, man. Before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to everybody who joined us today. Ricky J. Mark was awesome. That was his first time on this show. We'll have him on again, believe me. It was not Louis D. Sung's first time here. It was at least his third time. He was fantastic. We're going to keep getting Louis on to talk Dolphins. Manny Chang does an excellent job in the back making everything go. Guys, I want to remind you, because I get asked this question quite a bit. Because people know that I like to wager on sports games and I have a lot of fun with it. I win, I lose sometimes. I have a lot of fun no matter the outcome. And oftentimes people they'll slide into the DMs and they'll ask me, hey, like, where can I get this action? Where can I place bets? Because, it can be intimidating if you don't know where to go and what sports book to use. And there are some sports books out there that are not really worth your time. We have an official sportsbook sponsor, an official sportsbook partner here on Donno Daily, and that is BetUS.com. Sports betting season is in full force, guys. The NFL is about to kick off regular season games, so you want to get your accounts ready. You want to get your deposits ready. You want to get your action ready. You may already know this, but BetUS has been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades. They're entering their 27th season of NFL football. They're thriving and they are paying their loyal customer base. That is betus.com. They have loads of bonuses, by the way. Join now online or call 800-69-BET-US, and you can receive with our code a 125% sign-up bonus by using our code. For those of you watching, you see it on the screen, 5RSN125. If you type in that code with your deposit, 5RSN125, you receive a 125% sign-up bonus. A couple of weeks ago, I deposited $150 with our code, and immediately they put in $187.50 of free play money in my account. By the way, Brooklyn Rob is busting my balls that I didn't have the stones to bet Italy plus 750 before the Euro started. I bet on them in a lot of individual games. I didn't have the balls that Rob had betting Italy before the tournament. I could have done that right there on betus.com. I would have won big on the Italian national team. So sign up, betus.com. Use our code 5RSN125 for 125% sign-up bonus. And guys, make sure you check out the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. I'm going to head out there later this week because I am jonesing for the Italian beef sandwich. You get some of that au jus dipping sauce in there. Oh, it is so good. I get tater tots on the side. You can choose so many different side orders at the Quarterdeck. The food is delicious. The seafood is always fresh. The beer is ice cold. And the cocktails will cure your ails. And by the way, they have 2-for-1 happy hour all day, every day. 2-for-1 drinks all day. It never ends, my friends, at the Quarterdeck. Make the Quarterdeck your spot to watch every UFC pay-per-view fight with zero cover charge. If you want to find the location nearest to you for the South Floridians out there, you can visit their website at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. And while you're there, you can peep the menu as well. Quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. It's going to be a fun show tomorrow. We're back at 12 noon tomorrow, by the way. We'll be back at 12 noon, so make sure you readjust your calendars and your watches for 2 hours. Well, don't change your watches. That might throw off your entire day. We'll be back at 12 noon tomorrow. We will have Terrible Take Tuesday tomorrow. Huge thanks to Manny Chang. Huge thanks to everyone in the chat. Brooklyn Rob, Ninja Viking, Cap for Life, Quaidus, if I'm saying that correctly, Royal A. Shepherd, Julian Ramos. Man, I could scroll through all day. G.A. Canes fan, thank you so much. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow, 12 noon here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Ciao.